What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. You might have thought that by now the Russian leadership would recognize the catastrophic trajectory of its so-called special military operation. But no. The more time passes, the more we see a bizarre mix of desperation and denial. While the Kremlin keeps boasting about mythical successes and unveils brand new tactics, it simultaneously reveals, almost without shame, the immense human toll unfolding in reality. Most of such reveals are accidental and can only be assumed after analyzing the statements by government representatives and looking beyond the initial veil of illusion. And so recently we had another member of Putin's inner circle, the mayor of Moscow himself, Sergei Sobyanin, who just by speaking about the participants of special military operation being treated in one of hospitals to the south of Moscow, slipped the humongous numbers of real losses of the Russian military in their invasion of Ukraine. And honestly, the number is higher from what originally anticipated, definitely higher than what the Russian authorities officially present. It is in hundreds of thousands of people. And at the same time, with us being right in the middle of winter season, even more concerning facts reveal themselves how people of occupied territories actually live. The Putin's administration does not even think about rebuilding these places, like it promised long time ago, no. Instead, there is not even access to basic necessities like fresh, clean water. So people literally collect dirty rainwater from the puddles and drink it. Today, let's talk about the cost of Putin's liberation, both in terms of military casualties and the effects of this invasion had on both Russians and Ukrainians. For the longest time, the Kremlin tried to silence the extent of casualties, hoping that Russians would not notice the growing lines of men in hospitals or the rising numbers of funerals or graves in remote villages. And previously, a couple senior officials accidentally revealed the range of losses already. But it was almost obvious that these revelations were not intended. Now, we have what it looks like one of the first direct confessions. The mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, could not hide the grim reality anymore. He admitted, in surprisingly calm fashion, that about 600,000 soldiers have been seriously wounded or disabled, almost literal quote translated from Russian. Think about that number for a moment. 600,000 men. Each of them missing pieces of their old lives, many with little chance of proper medical care or rehabilitation. Officially, he told they are receiving state-of-the-art treatment in a repurposed hospital in Voronov, to the southwest of Moscow, originally meant to fight the consequences of you-know-which pandemic. This is a huge hospital complex, not just one building. And taking into consideration that sometimes serious treatments that might require months of rehabilitations were most likely done in a matter of weeks, in order to free some beds for the newcomers. It is relatively easy to believe that this six-digit figure that Sobyanin gave us, well, it very well might be real. Don't forget that there is a good possibility that even this number was lowered, because the subordinates never want to give bad news and unappealing numbers to their upper management. So the number that reached the mayor of Moscow, in reality, is probably much lower. This rehabilitation center in Voronov has modern equipment, performs advanced surgeries, provides prosthetic tailored for each patient. Sergei Sobyanin even proudly stated it is the biggest facility of its kind in the country, offering not just physical, but also psychological support. Yet, the question remains. How many of these men will fully recover, and how many will be left grappling with a system that barely recognizes them as heroes? Because a hospital, no matter how modern, does not magically solve the underlying tragedy of shattered limbs and futures. 600,000 of just injured and having been healed in this particular hospital complex alone is a massive figure, one that signals the dictator's readiness to grind through the population at an accelerating pace, in order to either achieve his mythical goals or at least not to acknowledge that he did something wrong. But how many more Russian soldiers were treated in the other hospitals across Russia, in the field hospitals, in their underground bunkers right next to front lines, or literally in trenches, being bandaged by their comrades? 600,000 is just a fraction of the real cost of Putin's war. And since a big part of them will never properly recover, that's going to be a huge percentage of working age able-bodied men which will never return and to be able to contribute to the society in full after the war is over. What also made this particular story so revealing and kinda unexpected is that Moscow was supposed to be a quiet region, far from war. The news of humongous losses were never supposed to inch so close to Russia's capital, let alone hundreds of thousands men being treated literally a dozen kilometers away from Moscow's border. So you can only imagine the fury of Putin when he heard somebody as high in the branch of government as Sergei Sobyanin to so calmly present this news to the regular people. The consequences will not be immediate, but Mr. Mayor should be most certainly very careful about going higher than the second floor in the nearest future. While talk of a sanitary or buffer zone along the Russian border has circulated in official statements, the reality feels like a joke. We are told that this zone, aimed at ensuring security or possibly to keep out Ukrainian raids, keeps creeping deeper into Russian territory rather than expanding outward. In the Belgorod region, local leaders even forbid residents from entering certain districts, warning them that the area is too dangerous. As if that's not alarming enough, you will see now reports every week about drones flying over people's heads and intensifying battles right on Russia's doorstep. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces continue pushing back. The 5th Armored Brigade, for example, has been actively repelling mechanized assaults in the Ivanovsky-Klishivka sector near Bakhmut. Tanks and infantry fighting vehicles are being taken out by precision-guided munitions and drones, forcing even more headlines about vehicles and entire convoys being destroyed. For anyone who thought that Russian army would learn from its earlier mistakes, these stories suggest the same old pattern: massed assaults leading to large casualties with minimal gains. An abandoned barn in the open field at a cost of couple thousand people. Even so, the Russian Ministry of Defense repeatedly claims success, desperately trying to paint a triumphant narrative. But you cannot hide columns of smoldering wrecks for long, nor the obvious facts that territory changes hands every other month, rendering each day's official statement obsolete by the next. If you want a taste of what Putin's liberation looks like, take a look at Donetsk, a city that has been stuck in a state of twilight between Russian occupation and a faint hope of normality. Certain districts have gone without water for months. Imagine being a pensioner and unable to afford buying bottled water or living with the knowledge that your taps have run dry indefinitely. Locals line up wherever they can to receive whatever little water local communities and authorities can provide, or whenever the new supply of water appears in the grocery stores. The others collect water from dirty puddles, then bring it up flights of stairs in barely standing apartment buildings. The task is humiliating enough if you are a healthy person in the best years of your lives, but even retirees who Putin swore to protect against nasty Ukrainians have to do it as well. The lack of water does not discriminate against age or gender. People need water to survive, and unlike food, a person cannot survive without water for more than several days. And then, the so-called Ministry of Construction in the occupied Donetsk region claims that water will return to the taps soon. They say it's just a matter of days or maybe weeks. But these people have heard this promise repeatedly. And the next day, they see once more that the faucets yield nothing but air and frustration. This is the day-to-day reality of people who have become pawns in the Putin's grand strategy. They are the same people who were told that joining Russia would instantly bring a higher quality of life. Instead, they get to watch as more soldiers roll in, while basic utilities remain a distant dream. In some parts of Ukraine, we hear about even women being pulled out of pre-trial detention centers and thrown into front lines to fight against their former countrymen. Does this sound like a meticulously planned operation, or does it look suspiciously like desperate leadership trying to find any means of staying afloat in already failed invasion? And all this time, we hear the optimistic tales about the mighty second army in the world. More like second strongest army in Ukraine at this point, right? Outside of Russia's borders, a different narrative is unfolding. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz boldly declared that Vladimir Putin has been defeated in Ukraine, failing on all fronts. Scholz cites the shattered dream of installing pro-Russian puppet regime in Kiev, the refusal of Ukraine's leadership to back down, and the ways NATO has only grown stronger, adding 2 new members, massively extending border with Russia, and significantly boosting its defense spending. While it is tempting to hope that this means the beginning of an end for Putin, the reality is never that simple. Yes, Ukraine has proven resilient, and yes, the West keeps funneling equipment and training. But the Russian leadership, unfortunately, still holds enough leverage in certain areas to claim incremental territorial gains. Even a small, symbolic victory could be enough to strengthen their hand in any negotiations, let alone the sheer volume of propaganda they inflict upon the regular people, saying that capturing a village with a pre-war population of 100 people is the game-changing victory. As a result, Russians are left in this strange situation, where official voices say one thing, while everyday people see another. Where the special military operation was supposed to last days, but current 3-year war brought direct destruction to more than 600,000 families. Millions more are affected in one way or another. People in Donetsk keep boiling water drawn from puddles, while men in uniform or those forced into uniform cycle in and out of long-occupied positions. And for what? For a dictator's fantasy of reviving an empire. For him trying to inject his name into modern Russian history. Sooner or later the truth will prevail. And long after Putin is gone, the people of Russia will see the events of the first quarter of the 21st century for what it truly is. An invasion of a neighboring country. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.